You serve a ton of communities across southwestern Ontario, and you had to quickly adjust your services and communications.
Catching up with, in many ways, what the hotel industry does, what the
Right.
airline industry does, what other industries do, because that's the kind of service that consumers expect today, even from their utility.
But I think that so many businesses lose sight of that to a certain extent with the thought that, okay, this is my website, and then this is my social media, and this is my digital advertising. And the reality and the truth is that they should actually all be working together, or they're doing too much heavy lifting in and of themselves on their own.
We're looking now at the digitization of communications.
Bird's Eye View.
So welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bird's Eye View. We took a week off. Obviously, we were dedicating all of our resources to watching the Leafs. Saw how that wound up. So now we can get back down to business. And you may notice that I'm dressed up for the first time in forever. That is number one, because we have a very special guest today. But number two, because Skylar started bringing some people back to work. We're doing it responsibly. We're doing it safely. But you may start to notice that Skylarites are in the office a little bit more frequently than we have been. So we're really excited to be around each other again and be collaborative and get to all that, the fun stuff that we do when we work together. To talk a little bit more about that in a larger setting, joining us today is Blair Peberdy. Blair is the Vice President of Government and Corporate Relations at Alectra Utilities. He's a veteran in the communications and PR worlds, and he's somebody that I'm really happy to have on, that he can share his wealth of advertising and PR experience and join us on the show. So welcome, Blair.
Well, thank you, Kyle. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
No problem. Thank you. So Blair, you're, as mentioned, Vice President of Government and Corporate Relations at Alectra Utilities. Alectra is a fairly young brand. It's experienced a significant amount of rapid growth over the last few years. Just, high level, what was your place in the development of the brand?
Well, I was actually quite fortunate because I joined the company really on the first day it started business as a new company. It was a merger of a bunch of utilities. So they had already gone through the branding process in terms of choosing the new name for the company, the designs for the logos and the word marks, color schemes. All of that had been done over the past 18 months prior to the merger. So when I joined, fortunately, I was handed what I think is a really, really good piece of work and a great piece of graphics and design to start working with. And so over the past 3.5 years now, we've been bringing that brand into the marketplace, building customer awareness of it, and really still learning how to use it and what works and what doesn't. So it's been a really, really exciting thing and a really unique opportunity when you think about it.
It really has been, and it's been exciting for us to be able to work with you on it in a variety of ways. I think what you find is that being a new brand, the world is your oyster, so to speak, right? You can do whatever you want with it to a certain extent.
Well, that's an interesting point. And one of the discussions we've had in the office is, we haven't inherited a brand that's 100 years old that has a lot of equity and attributes to it. So this is a brand new one that we have to build a history around, and it has its own unique personalities, and the employees are all sort of, even though they worked at other companies, they're all new to the Alectra name. On the other hand, it's a lot of responsibility because what we leave to the communicators that come behind us is what they're going to build on. And we want to make sure that they've got a really solid foundation.
Yeah, I can be entirely objective about this and say it's certainly so far so good. As mentioned, when I introduced you, you've got an extensive history in PR, marketing, advertising, and just communications in general. You established and led award-winning communications for Toronto Hydro. You've taught at several universities. But just in general, how have communications, particularly in the utility industry, changed over the years?
Well, they've changed the way they have in most companies. Maybe not so quickly as we've seen, digital communications catch fire in many industries. We're a bit behind that. But of course, we communicate with our customers the way they want to be communicated, and that's digital. So over the past, I say every 5 years now, there's a sea change, but the channels we're using are different. Having said that, I think the communications foundations, the fundamental things that we talk to our customers about haven't changed that much. We're looking now at the digitization of communications, and so many customers are doing it so well now, and really showing us the way, the Starbucks, the Amazons, all of those.
Right. And I think there's an expectation that they would, right? I know that we've had conversations with, everything from utilities to medical practices that are finding that requirement now to digitize, to become, a little bit more innovative when it comes to communicating and offering digital experience, as opposed to, it just being an optional type thing, right? One of the things that's going to lead to another leap in digitizing the world and bringing things to a mobile perspective, and quarantine hasn't been easy on any of us, but, businesses were really hit in a uniquely stressful way. But you're a unique business in that you serve a ton of communities across Southwestern Ontario, and you had to quickly adjust your services and communications so that you could serve them not only adequately, but expertly. So what was that rapid change like, and what were the immediate steps that you guys took?
Well, the most radical change, I think, or the most drastic change, was around the call centers and moving, more than 100 customer service reps out of traditional call center offices to work from their homes remotely. But once we got that straightened out, it was just a situation of, having our core skeleton crews available, what we need to respond to emergencies and to safety issues on the grid, so that we could keep the lights on and provide really fast service, reliable service. And I would say that took us, over 2 or 3 weeks, we were up and running pretty smoothly, which is amazing considering what we were faced with, and many companies faced with the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the employees and staff at every company, who really made this work, but it's also a testament to the leadership at each company as far as looking forward and how this maybe plays a role in life moving forward, or work moving forward, and how work-life balance may change forever as a result of it.
Well, and that sort of touches back onto what we talked about earlier around, some things haven't changed. And one of the things that hasn't changed is the need for companies and leaders to stay in touch with their employees and to ensure that their employees are feeling okay and have the tools that they need to do their jobs. And so in many ways, we're interacting with employees much more frequently than we did. It's just not in person.
Yeah. To assist the communities that you work in, whether it's through donations to food banks or, in other ways, that I think that, it's certainly something that I think that you guys can feel proud of, that at least you've contributed back to even the places that you're indirectly associated with as people struggle through this situation, right?
One of the things the company did right off the bat was develop a community involvement program, sponsorships, donations, those kinds of things. And we had a program in place. We put it in place, every year, and it's quite well organized. But when the COVID hit, of course, all of a sudden the community needs changed radically. And,
right.
And early in the year, we began to hear from hospitals and food banks and United Way and others about what they were seeing coming, right, and what they were experiencing at the time. So to the credit of the management team at Alectra and the board of directors, we basically realigned the 2020 program and changed it to really focus in on, healthcare, hospital needs. What could we give them in terms of, face masks and
right,
food bank donations, right, and other things.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with food banks as well, and Food Banks Canada, and they've shifted even their annual report to reflect the fact that it's just been a totally different year. And so rather than aggregating all the typical numbers that they're focusing on what everything that's happened this year has brought to the table for them and how they're responding, accordingly. The program for you is Alectra Cares. That's the initiative that I know you personally take a lot of pride in, that certainly something you've led, and it centers around a mandate that Alectra will always create meaningful and measurable social, environmental, economic benefits from and around the Alectra workforce. This year, obviously, it's presented a number of unique opportunities to act as a custodian. You just spoke to it. You also touched on the fact that 2021 plan is being developed. Do you foresee any real changes that way through Alectra Cares?
It's interesting because one of the things that happened, of course, is that many of the fundraising events, the traditional ones, the golf tournaments, the galas, and those kinds of things that companies support, have been canceled, where possible, have been moved into virtual types of events. And so we've been working with community groups on, okay, well, if we are looking at virtual events, how does Alectra fit in? How are we going to promote it? How does it look as an event for us to sponsor? Because although we want to sponsor as much as possible, like all companies, we also take a somewhat business approach to it, and making sure there's some framework and return on investment on it to some extent. And many of these organizations are filing, reports on these virtual events that we've been involved with, and they'll give us a full breakdown. But instead of visitors and people attending and those types of things, we're getting social media hits and online sort of videos. So it's really, really interesting how many of the community groups have changed their focus to be able to deliver virtual events and provide the sponsoring companies with really good, robust measurement and feedback on what it was they did.
Right. Shifting gears a little bit, back in March, again, almost, perfect storm came together. We launched together Alectra's new website. The timing was perfect. It was just in time. And it now serves as a pretty unique tool for Alectra to communicate with your customers. Of course, it was designed for that reason, first and foremost. But I guess in your opinion, if we really pull it back, what's the importance of a website, for a business, particularly for a business like Alectra, especially in times of heightened customer outreach?
Well, it's what we talked about earlier, this new digital communications world and how we interact with customers. And they would much rather deal with us, through their mobile phone app or on the website than call in and wait to get hold of a customer service rep. So that website really does provide the foundation for our digital strategy going forward. And it is built, as you know, with expansion in mind of the site and of the capabilities of it, both on your personal computers or on your mobile. Yeah. The digital self-serve business model is very high on our strategy, the company's strategy going forward, moving into catching up with, in many ways, what the hotel industry does, what the airline industry does, what other industries do, because that's the kind of service that consumers expect today, even from their utility. So it provides us with a great platform. It did come in handy during the early transition when we moved our customer service reps from the offices into their homes. We wanted to the extent possible, direct callers to the website rather than to the phones while we got the customer service reps up and running and got the technology issues figured out. And it was very effective in doing that. And so it proved to us and to the call center people and the management of Alectra that of the value of that website as a self-service tool, and also the value of digital advertising, as you know, and strategically reaching consumers online through the channels that they like to surf on.
Yeah, it's so important. Let's, make sure that we hit the perfect touch points, I would even call it, because they do exist as far as where people live, in the digital space. I think it certainly serves to communicate over and above where people would typically expect to be communicated to. As far as the website goes, what advice could you offer as far as what businesses may be able to do to optimize their communication with customers?
Well, the tried and true social media channels still, were the first areas that the utility got into, and that's Twitter and Facebook, Instagram to some extent. And so those really do form main channels for us still, particularly Twitter and Facebook. Right. The next piece of that, though, is being able to link those channels into your website if they need more information. So if we put out, and that's where we're heading now with this, is, if we have an outage in Vaughan or Hamilton, the next phase of that would be they could link on and go right into our outage maps for their neighborhood so they can see exactly what's going on. Or we would be able to send a chat note to them saying, hey, we know your power's out, we're on it. So all of a sudden it takes the worry out of them having to phone us, them wondering if we know their lights are out. Right. So all of those things are coming. So I guess but a lot of it's being based on our traditional social media channels that have come up. Now it's bringing the website, linking those channels into the website more effectively, and then being able to bring on self-service options to them some that exist, some that will be built over the next couple of years.
Right. It's about that digital ecosystem that we talk so much about, right? Where they don't have to all work in vacuums. They can work all together. For Alectra, Twitter is that perfect conduit to communicate that way that can then work within the ecosystem with everything else. But I think that so many businesses lose sight of that to a certain extent with the thought that, okay, this is my website, and then this is my social media, and this is my digital advertising. And the reality and the truth is that they should actually all be working together, or they're doing too much heavy lifting in and of themselves on their own.
Right. And it's absolutely right. And to the extent that we can get them working together, really, really incrementally increases our communications options into customers and makes it easier for them to deal with us. And especially as soon as we get into mobile apps. But we do like this with the smart meters that were installed, I guess, a decade ago or 15 years ago now. It does give us an opportunity to know if your particular house is out of power.
Right.
And it's not much of a stretch for us to be able to say, okay, well, we know Kyle's phone number or cell number because he set it up with the account. Let's send Kyle a note right away that we know the power is out. And that can be done. That can all be automated. So that's
right.
where we're headed.
And on that point, just want to remind everybody, if you are an Alectra customer, whether it's at work or home or in any capacity, e-billing is an option, and we encourage you to sign up so that we can communicate with you effectively. It's better for the environment. It's better for, and given the campaigns that are going on, right now or this year, it could lead to a donation to food banks. And it's just a great move. I can speak personally to it. So we encourage that.
So we started that campaign, a campaign to get people to convert over to e-billing and donate the savings that we're making to Feed Ontario Food Bank. And, we've been able to raise about $100,000. Our customers have raised it by converting to e-billing. And hopefully they'll get a much more convenient way of doing business with us and a convenient way of receiving their bills and paying them. And at the same time, we're able to make a meaningful donation again to this food need that's out in the communities. So it's a great win-win for everybody. Yeah,
it really is. Congratulations on the success of that, by the way. And Blair, thank you for the insights today. Thank you for everything. We usually like to close off just on a funny story that's happened around the environment in the last few months. Do you have anything that you could share with us?
Well, I find it funny what my wife doesn't. Working at home so much, I hadn't been at home much. I mean, I come home at night after work like everybody, but I never really noticed much around the house beyond, the normal things that we work on. So being at home, for the past 5 months, I've started looking around a bit more, and I see that soffit needs fixing. And my God, when was the last time we painted that chimney? And I was sitting out on the patio one day, late in the afternoon, just looking around, and I realized I saw these huge evergreens at the side of my house that I remember planting those. I guess about 25 years ago, and they were small little things. I never thought about them since. They're over in a corner of the house by the neighbor's sort of walk between the two homes, and I never really looked at them. And this thing was huge, and it was actually encroaching on the neighbor's roof. So I walked that up, and I took a look. I said, geez, I better have a look at that. And my neighbor happened to be outside. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just looking at this tree here. I mean, I didn't realize it's been, it's starting to touch your bricks. He says, Blair, it's been like that for 10 years. So I said, well, I got to get Davey Tree in here to clean it up a bit. But yeah, just looking around the place, I'm starting to get to know, the neighborhood more, and meeting people, people that I've met that I've run into at Alectra, I never knew lived in the neighborhood.
Wow.
So,
Blair, thank you very much for joining us today. It proved really insightful, and I hope that people really take into account the things that you discussed, not just as far as communicating as a new brand, but the ways that you communicate and the way that ecosystem works, and the way that we're going to continue to adapt to change, whether it's Alectra or otherwise. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kyle. It's been a pleasure.
I hope everybody enjoyed that. Thank you very much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
Bird's Eye View.